Hi, I'm Romi.
And I'm Nicole.
We are two businesswomen, two colleagues, two friends who had an idea and decided to do something with it. Over the past 2 years, we've built the Daily Drip, a media platform and community for the modern South Florida businesswoman.
From Palm Beach to South Beach, we've built an audience of thousands of local business owners, CEOs, founders, executives, and more. And we did it 100% organically.
Whether it's through our blog, weekly newsletter, social media, events, or even this podcast, our mission is to offer a daily drop of inspiration as you pursue your dreams.
People ask us all the time how we did it and why we did it. Join us as we bring you along our journey and the journeys of so many other incredible local businesswomen here on Her Pursuit.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Her Pursuit podcast. I'm Romi Wallach, co-founder of the Daily Drip, and today I'm joined for part two of a part two series with Melia Arnett-Archie, founder and owner of the VoiceBox Creators podcast, home of the Daily Drip podcast, Balaun, brand director, and Stacey Kovalsky, VP and PR of communication for USPA Global. So thank you guys for being here for part two. And in today's episode, we're talking about how to use your personal style as a tool. So I am going to start, I'll start with Michelle this time. We'll go around. Yes. So what role has style played in your business journey career, which we did touch on the first, so you may want to recap a little.
Right. But we also were talking about a totally different topic that I still have right here ready. So we were talking about younger people and how if they haven't worked for a company, they show up in cool outfits that we look at and go, oh, no. It's like, you're not allowed to wear that, because we have all this history on our shoulders of what we were allowed to wear, what was presentable, what was, like the woman who was looking at you through her glasses. My first job at 16 was working in the lingerie department in Hallie's department store, which was the fancy one. And I was folding slips. Do you even know what a slip is? You wore a slip? Really? You were little girls when you wore those slips. So it's kind of like those are the things we have in our history. And I personally think it's wonderful. It rubs me totally the wrong way when somebody shows up in something that I don't find appropriate. But I'm like, Michelle, you're being an old lady. Look how awesome it is that this person felt so empowered and wore something so creative. So I always tried to soften it with, don't take my old lady history and put it on these people who have never worked in an office. People may never work in an office again. They're never going to have our history where we went through the schooling, then the college, and then the working for bosses with their feet up on the table, clipping their nails. It's like that doesn't happen anymore because HR won't permit it. Right?
There is a middle ground, I will say, and I think that it is important. And, it's funny because this is sort of the end of the conversation about what we would say to younger people, but it is still important. I think you should have your own style. I think there's a lot more room. And I'm an example of that, right? I work professionally and I still show up in jeans or wearing sneakers. But I think that it is, I don't know what the exact word is, but I think it is a mistake to assume that it doesn't matter, that there's not something to be said for still showing up and looking professional. If you want to be taken seriously, I think there's something in how you present that has to correlate to that. So if you're a younger person, I'm not saying don't embrace your personal style, but if you're walking into a professional environment, you should have a professional appeal or some kind of structure that is somewhat professional, right?
Have the wisdom to know sort of the environment that you're in, right? The audience. And I'll sort of give an example. When I was a prosecutor, we talked about this, I was in a room full of dark suits and the pantyhose. And so when I transitioned in-house and started working for a very large medical device company, I went to work that way. Straight out of, my prosecution sort of work history into this corporate environment. I was suited and booted, and I came in, and about 3 months in, I was leading a global team. They had sort of a review with HR, an alignment meeting where they met with my team to see, what they thought about me, and then they would bring that information back to tell me how I could improve, what I was doing well. And so I come into the meeting and I'm all ready for, stuff about work, right? Doing this well, doing that. And the first thing she says is, they say you dress too formal. You look and feel unapproachable. And I was like, what? like, I'm wearing a suit. Like, it's business. I'm wearing a suit. I mean, how is this inappropriate? How is this inappropriate? But for them, in the environment, because I wasn't in South Florida anymore. I was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and, they were wearing Patagonia vests and khakis, and I was coming in a full suit, my red lipstick, right? Because I'm my power play. And it was, creating a gap between me and my team. And so to your point, it's understanding the environment. Nothing that I was wearing was wrong. It wasn't offensive. But in that environment, it was creating a schism between me and my ability to be successful with my team. So I had to adjust. Now, in both, I had my personal style elements, right? But, I was definitely not wearing Patagonia. Right. But, I mean.
I would have.
Right. I mean, it just wasn't my style. But it's how can I be, please, no shade, no tea. But for me, it wasn't me. But it was fitting my personal style now in a way that allowed me to connect better with my team in a new environment. So, younger people, more mature people, I think that's, those are the glasses that we need to have on, is sort of what environment am I in, and how can I work within my personal style within that environment. But to go into an environment to say, I'm just going to be me, and what at all costs, and people are just going to have to deal with it. I don't think that that's necessarily true either. I mean, as a former leader of a global team, I can tell you, it's like there's still a framework in which you have to play to be successful, and you need to know what that is, and somewhat adapt to that to make it work.
Yeah, and I mean, there's business time and there's free time, and we all wear different things in our business time and our free time. And I do agree that I feel like young people are changing the office. So, there's definitely a lot of more casual wear in my office, but I feel more comfortable being more dressed up some of the days. But so I stay, in my lane. But then, there's times when I'm like, oh, I was never allowed to wear jeans to the office, and now I'm wearing jeans and a blazer. So but I feel like young people now have more confidence than we did, and I think
unfounded.
I feel like, and this goes a little bit deeper, but I feel like women's place in the office has changed, and we've been more empowered. And I feel, with the Me Too movement and aspects like that, women are coming in with more confidence and not feeling that men run the office. I hate to kind of take it down that path, but, we're four ladies here, and, not feeling like men have all the power and men run the office. When I think back on what I wore when I was younger, I probably was wearing things to stand out, or maybe to get attention because I was younger, because I was female. And sometimes those things, not that they were, a crop top or something like that, but sometimes those things got me attention that I didn't want. And that wasn't good. And it's a bad place to be in, and I don't think it was my fault.
I guarantee you it was not your fault.
Yeah, now I realize,
right now,
yeah, and nothing was ever inappropriate, but I feel like, there were times if I was wearing something more fitted that I realized later that I was getting attention that wasn't the attention that I wanted. And
It's so unfair.
It's unfair,
but it's real, and
I think
that the reality is, like, you can call it unfair. It may be all those things, but at the end of the day, like, you have to be thinking about, to your point, like, what do I want people to,
right.
Like, what is the attention I want?
Right.
And if this is taking away from them seeing what I'm really trying to get across, then I'm going to make a different statement. I don't know that I think going the other extreme is like I'll wear whatever I want and you have to live with it, and figure out how to read me the way,
It just depends on what markets you're in. When you ask me about your brand. So this morning on one of my billion stories that I looked at already in bed at 5:00 this morning was an interview with Dolly Parton. And she was talking about, that lady that was in our town that dressed like a tramp and her hair was piled up and red lips and long and showed a lot of cleavage and stuff. She's like, I thought that was great. And she said, during my career, I had people come up and say, Dolly, you need to tone it down. No one is going to take you as a songwriter seriously unless you start to button up that top a little bit and, you know, bring the hair down a few feet and, you know, kind of a thing. And she said, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. So it depends on what your brand is. It depends. And
if you walked into a bank dressed like that, I think it might be a little different.
A bank is one thing, but there are a lot of other creative businesses where, so you have to walk this really fine line of what's too much, what's inappropriate, and what is my brand kind of a thing. So we can't imagine seeing Dolly Parton in any other kind of light, or Cher, or, you know, or Pink. Like, go back to the pink hair, you know, like people have those, and those are easy names to throw out that people can recognize right away and hang their hat on. I mean, Beyonce does a great job of like changing like so many different things. That reminds me of Madonna, you know, when she was a blonde, then she was a brunette, and then she was like into bondage, and I don't know what she's into now, right? So it's kind of like, it's all these morphing of things. Just like you said, what will the customer think if I had short hair and suddenly I have long hair? I did it in reverse. I had long hair and I'm back to short hair now. Like, because it's not about how you look that represents your brand. It's your brand has to be recognizable by what it's representing. Like, is it a color? I have people who say, oh, that's definitely Michelle because look at that color, right? So your brand has to have some unspoken elements to it that is recognizable, whether you have long hair or short hair. You know, it is the glasses, it is the lipstick, it is that, you know, that's more of the brand than how long your hair is, kind of a thing. So that's kind of how I marry that topic.
Well, I love that, because that was going to be my question to you. Is how can personal style be a tool in your business and personal branding? So when you're working with a client and you're working on their branding, you know, what kinds of, how do you look at somebody who's come to you for this kind of guidance and help them? I mean, sometimes I think we may have a sense of what that is for us, and sometimes it evolves. Like, to be honest, I didn't wake up one day and think like, ooh, sneakers is going to be what people think of when they think of me. Like, I wear sneakers because I love them and they're comfortable and I feel good.
When you're working with someone on their brand, I do an exercise. Here's a plug for me. I do a 2-word brand exercise where you come up with your 2-word personal brand. It's after sifting through 650 words. 2-word brand.
You give them the words?
No. Oh. Yeah, they have to choose.
I'm saying
I give them the words. Yeah, I give them the words, and we go through all these various exercises. And it is amazing how when we come down to those 2 words, they're like, oh, that's it. That's it. My 2 words, genuine, bold. It works, right? Yeah. Whether it's my hair, whether it's my brand, whether it's my house, like the house is crazier than what I look like, kind of a thing. So it's like deciding where to go with your brand. The logos, the websites, and think those are steps 8, 9, 10. Right. There's so much work in front of branding that has to do with your mission, your vision, like all the things you're feeling about, like how do I show up in my business and how do that morphs and directs how you look, right? Yeah. So if you're a confident business person and you want to show up, you know, you're like, it's really important to me to be responsive to the polo industry and stuff. There's a lot of room to work with inside of that. So she can try different things like that. So it depends is always the answer, because
that's the lawyer answer.
Because I believe in a couture answer. And couture is different on everyone. And fit is the most important thing. So if you put on a jacket and the shoulders hit you here or they hit you here, it's wrong. It needs to hit you exactly right. So you can take a cheap ass jacket, cheap jacket, and as long as you get it tailored to you, like this whole ready to wear thing, RTW, ready to wear. Off the rack. This is not couture. Couture was, we take your measurements, we fit this jacket you liked on you, for you, and then you look wonderful in it. If you just take a jacket, we have one jacket, you put it on, we're all going to look different in it, right? You can't have one answer. It depends where you're putting your foot in the river at the time.
I like the 2 words. And I think that it's a good jumping off point, because I think like it's hard. And I think that's a big piece of like what we try and work on at the Daily Drip, and making sure that we're helping, because these are people that it's not that they don't know who they are. It's not that they're not confident in what they do, but figuring out like how to be able to express that and show up digitally as well as in person, that what you see on the website or what you see on, on your webpage or whatever it is matches the person that you meet when you meet them, right? And that it's all authentic, and it rings true for each of us, So I love that.
It's also breaking the mold. Like there's nothing worse than like when you have a coach or a financial advisor or even lawyers or whatever, pictures, blue suits, smiles, like it's all, nobody wants to talk to you.
And I was actually just gonna say that, I think for me coming out sort of as the social media lawyer, right, and really carving out this niche in the law and working with creative entrepreneurs, there thankfully, wasn't a whole lot to look at to say, oh, this is what it looks like. So it really freed me and allowed me to decide, what's the brand? What is it going to be? What will it look like, feel like to the end customer? And I think I had a decision to make, as we all do, I think, especially when we move into entrepreneurship, am I going to be a disruptor? And if I'm going to sort of disrupt the way that, these types of services are normally delivered, then I have to be free to create the brand that's going to do that. And so, maybe I'm a lawyer with braids and with, big glasses and red lipstick and fun colors. And that's okay. And there's no one else that looks like me, or very few people. And that's okay too. But understanding that, it might be when you're educating, I think, your customer on what that is, that takes time.
And I think, to your point, the other side of that is that you're looking to attract a certain type of creative and a certain type of client. Like the person that isn't going to understand all of the color and whatever, those aren't the people you're trying to connect with. And I think that's the most important thing when we're talking about brand and we're talking about how we're showing up. We're not for everyone. Like that is for sure. And we don't want to be. We want to be for a particular, there's one type of person.
Choosing a niche is so important when everyone's like, no, then I can't sell to everyone. Yes, you can sell to everyone. It's like a niche just gives you a direction. The people who fall in love with you and want to work with you, who are outside of that niche, don't care about the niche. They will come work with you because you have that niche. So it's like, it's not a negative to have a more narrow focus, as opposed to you sell to everyone, you sell to no one, right? It's like the more focused you are, the people who still love you, they will file in. They don't care that your niche is, No,
what starts to happen is those people start to say, oh, like, I see that you work with creatives, but do you work with other people too? And we're an example of that. I mean, Melia's been helping my husband with his business. He ain't a creative, I can tell you that. It's actually a fintech company. But the point is that I'm not her niche. He's not her niche. Right. But it still attracts. Like I still got everything that mattered in terms of her professionalism, in terms of her knowledge as an attorney and working as a business law attorney. Right. All of that was communicated through your brand, through how you hold yourself, all of that. So I think that's exactly right. You niche, because I think that's the best way to even start your business, and it's a lot easier than going wide. You're better off going deep. Absolutely. And then it pulls other people organically into the fold.
And it's all stems from confidence, right? Like I think if you want to pull all of it, like for style, fashion, everything, it all comes down to confidence. Like it doesn't matter if you show up in something wacky or something conservative. It depends on your confidence in the room at the time.
And courage to do it, right? The courage and confidence, because if you don't have the courage, whatever it is wearing you. Right? It's like you can choose the style and you can go for it, but you may not be able to wear it like me, because I have not only the confidence to wear it, but I have the courage also to show up being me. And when I wear it, I'm wearing the clothes. The clothes aren't wearing me. And I think that's what we should strive for.
The first time my first divorce, yes, there's more than one. I bought a silver sequin dress to say F you, right? So I wore this silver sequin dress to some event somewhere, which was in the 80s. It was not, people didn't wear sequins at that time. It wasn't a thing yet, unless you were going to the disco or whatever. And I remember I did have to take a shot or two of vodka before I went to this party because I was a newly divorced person and I had this silver sequin dress on. And I remember standing at this party and like, you know, you have to have a bit of a facade when you're wearing this crazy, like, look at me thing, right? And I remember somebody, I could feel him on my back. He was touching the sequins. He wanted to touch the sequins. And I was like, yes. And then he was, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm like, there's someone in the dress, you know? But it's like the courage. Sometimes you have, like, if you choose something really outlandish to do, obviously I do like a little theatrics. Give me a theme. I'm happy. So when I have the chance to like perform, I consider that a performance, right? If you're going to something, you're going to perform yourself. You have to kind of get your brain into whatever it is. It's really courageous and it is confident, but it's fun to do. It's fun. The first time you do that, you're like, oh, that was fun. I could do that again.
So, okay. So we were just talking, we've touched on a little bit, but I still want to go back to it and just kind of go over first impressions, right? This is, they say you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. You can show, if you feel confident in it, you can show up in whatever you like. So you don't typically get a second chance to make a first impression. But if you were speaking to some of the younger people now, or even, I think it doesn't even have to be younger people. It could be new to career, I think is really it too, right? Like I started my career a lot later, my focus anyway.
Or shifting career, right?
Yeah, from one space to another. So what advice would you give to somebody in terms of, you know, they're new to networking and how do they stand out through their personal style in a corporate business world?
Well, you know, we've been talking about this throughout our conversation. You know, you have to be yourself, right? So you have to be yourself. And that's what's going to give you the most confidence. So if you don't feel comfortable in a suit or if you don't feel comfortable in sneakers or however, you know, your hair a certain way, then don't try to be something that you're not because people are going to see through that and you won't be your authentic self. However, with that said, you know, I do come from a background where, you know, I believe that there should be some level of being put together and having a presence and looking professional. And there's certain things that are professional in this world and certain things that are not. And if you want someone to, you know, see you in a light that is flashy or, you know, sexy or something like that, then that's what they're going to see you in. If you want somebody to see you as a smart business person, then maybe you need to tone down what you wear as a, you know, person on the weekend where you look fantastic and you look great. Maybe you need to tone it down so that people will actually listen to you and not be looking at what you're wearing. You know, be authentic, be yourself, but be, Nicole said this to me earlier, dress the best version of yourself, right? Yeah. So that's where I feel.
Because I think that there is something to be said. Like we're still talking about people. Like people, like it is human nature. The first thing is when somebody walks into a room, and it's not just, to me, it's a combination of things. It's sort of how they're put together. It's also an energy thing, like how people, like what their energy feels like as they, you know, there's some people that they can look all sorts of fabulous, but they're coming towards you and you feel like you're gonna have a heart attack because their energy is like super intense or whatever, or they might be just so much. But I think that I you know, as much as we all like to say, like, wear whatever you want, just own it and whatever. And I agree with that to some degree, but you're still talking about people and we're talking right now specifically about how to operate in a business space, not, you know, be damned with everyone because this is who I am and how I'm showing up. Like you're walking in and you're trying to get a new client or you're trying to, you know, bring on a new community partner, whatever the case may be. They're looking. They're not, you know, most of them can see. So they're looking and that's the impression they're getting. And if you give off a vibe of, and it could be anything, you know, but it's going to have an impact. So
you look messy, then people are going to think that your work is messy, right?
100%.
So,
Like your closet.
And just a practical tip is, that I've learned, I've started to utilize myself, is trying to find out as much about the room that you're going into in advance, right? Because I think a lot of it is just not knowing, what to expect. What kind of group is this? Who will be there? What is the vibe normally? It takes a lot of stress off of you if you can just do a little bit of homework. And that would be my advice to a younger person is find out who's going to be in the room, because there's enough room within your personal style to accommodate the room, right? Like to Stacey's point, you're not, you have Saturday to Sunday, right? And you dress along the spectrum. Exactly. And so once you figure out who's going to be in the room, you can still play within your personal style and brand, but pick the part of it that's going to be most appropriate for that room.
Well, and especially as a younger person, if you're trying to get in front of somebody that is of a later vintage, they are still thinking back to that time. And I work with somebody who, he had a comment about someone I introduced him to that to him was not dressed professionally. He didn't show up wearing a shirt with the sleeve, the whole thing. It's not a thing for me because it just isn't. But I can understand why someone who is at the end of their career, who's closer to their mid 60s, somebody shows up looking, in his mind, unprofessional, and he's already checked out. Yeah. And so, right or wrong, maybe you don't want to work with that person. That's fine. But if you are really looking to get in front of and have a meaningful conversation with somebody that is maybe older and in more of a structured professional setting, you want to be cognizant of that and how you present yourself and how you show up.
And in reverse, if you're trying to attract a more youthful demographic of business, you don't want to show up in a 3-piece suit with stockings, right?
Right, because that's intimidating.
Because that's intimidating, and that's, the feedback that you got. And it, it shouldn't be that way. Thank you for, responding to me when I was talking a little bit about, what you wear and how you're perceived. It shouldn't be that way, but it is.
Yeah. So your question is, how do you stand out at a networking event? I don't know that I've ever gone to one and thought, I really want to stand out. Like when you go to a networking event, you sort of, if you know who's in the room or who's going to be, you're sort of like looking to see how things are working and how people are connecting. But I think for a young person at a networking event, the most important thing is just pick one person to try and connect with and make an appointment, like, hey, I'd love to have your opinion on XYZ. Is it possible to have a coffee with you sometime or whatever? Just pick one person, stop trying to collect all the cards in the room and standing out. I don't know that you want to be the standout in the room because it's
the way that I sort of took the question more than, how many people you do or don't meet in the room. It's when you step into the room, do you have presence, right? Do people, know you? Are you sticky? Even if they don't talk to you. I feel like when I walk into a room, you know Melia's been there. You know what I mean? And, I'm just confident enough to say
like it or
that.
not, I'm here.
I'm here, right? This is who I am. You would have seen me, right? You're going to feel me, whether we talk or not. And then, maybe when I see you the next time, we'll have a conversation. But it's how do you walk in enough power? And again, that doesn't mean beating people over the head with your personality and your style, but, enough confidence, enough courage to show up in the room and take up space. Are you taking up space? And how can we help young people be able to do that? And again, I think it is, going back to what I said the first time, it is being comfortable with who's in the room, the vibe of the room, and then in showing up physically dressed and prepared enough to engage in what's happening in that room and not just the room in your head.
Well, and I think the word prepared is perfect for that, because I think how you show up really speaks to how did you prepare to show up at this event? How did you prepare to meet people in this space and you're there for a reason, but whatever, you go to different things for different reasons. So how did you prepare? And I think how you show up dressed is sort of indicative of the prep that went into it. Right. So I think that's sort of exactly how you hit it. Because I don't think it's just, I think you can stand out. I think we keep touching on this, and I think this is the biggest takeaway from this whole conversation is it's how are you wearing what you're wearing? How is that, how does it make you feel? And then how does that project outwards? Right. And I've talked about this a ton because people are always like, oh, I love I laugh when people are like, what are you wearing to this? I'm like, I'm the person you're asking. I get that text and I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I'm the bottom of the bar. It's almost like, okay, they're thinking if she's wearing this, I'm up.
So the money, power, purpose thing. And so Nicole had her little pink suit on and stuff, and you had a black top, white shorts, and these shoes. You looked so amazing. It was like within your brand, you were perfectly assimilate. It was exactly right. So it's like you can hold a very unique way of dressing, and even to like a big stage event that you're going to, still feel like that's your power, that's your comfort, that's your presence, and it works. Right. And that, I think, is exactly right. Like you're like, don't ask me. I'm going to wear shorts and tennis shoes. It's like, yeah, you wore shorts and tennis shoes, but you wore like white, really nice shorts. You wore really expensive shoes. It's like you can still wear shorts and a T-shirt, but like which ones? Right.
Actually, what was really cute about that day, and this is like totally whatever, but my mom showed up wearing running shoes, and it was more funny because everyone was like, oh my God, you're like Romi. You're wearing running shoes. Meanwhile, my mom never wore running shoes growing up. Like she was always in heels. This is like a new phase for her. So I'm like, all right, we've got a little reversal going on.
She's learning from you.
She's like,
well, it's also like we said, it's slightly more casual times, and sneakers are trendy and cute, and they're in a million different colors and styles and shapes, and
COVID flipped it, I think, a lot. I really do.
My poor ruined feet from wearing spike heels in the 80s on the street in New York. Oh my God. I used to walk through the leather on those shoes.
But I think I mentioned this to you guys earlier, like COVID for me was the first time I ever felt like I was ahead of a trend, because I was like, everyone's showing up in sweatpants, and even my sweatpants, there's a vibe to them, right? Like I have... I have it's a shame that is not acceptable in the business world, because my sweatpant game is on point. Yes. Like hoodies and sweatpants.
It's athleisure.
You can call it whatever you want, but I wish that I dream of a day where somebody comes up with like the business version of like sweatpants and a sweatshirt.
Well, they did come out with the pajamas that look like you were going out at night, like the silk pajamas that you go out to a party and your silk, top and loose pants.
There are brands that do that.
Yeah. Well, I have to say my outfit for our magazine cover shoot is somewhat a jammy look. Okay. You will have to wait and see. Well, I just want to thank you all so much. I think that there were a lot of really good takeaways, and I hope that people sort of walk away feeling like how to really, dress in a way that makes them feel good, how to own who they are, maybe come up with 2 words to figure out their brand, think about a capsule wardrobe, and think about how their closet may be a reflection of something a lot more going on. And so I thank everyone for being here today. I thank the audience for listening to another episode of Her Pursuit. And I hope you'll tune in again and for our next episode. Thanks for listening to this episode of Her Pursuit. You can catch a new episode every other Wednesday. Please don't forget to subscribe or follow so that you don't miss out on any of the good stuff.
We love bringing you free content and value to help inspire and motivate you. So if you enjoyed this episode, throw us a thumbs up, leave us a rating, a review, and send this to a friend who you think would enjoy it. Your support is so important to us, and we wouldn't be able to do any of this without you. So thanks for listening. Talk to you in 2 weeks.